on. Excuse me.
Okay, can you hear now? All right. I'd like to start off this discussion period with getting Naomi's reactions to the session. You know the family, you have a feeling for them, so you have a chance to read them as I couldn't read them. So I'd just like to get some feedback from you.
I thought what happened was very moving, and it was still along the same track of where we were with the initial session. And Katrina was much more open and receptive this time, Harry, to hearing about her mother's love and caring for her, and not really knowing how to do that very well, and Katrina not knowing how to accept that very well. So it was still falling. They were a little bit more receptive this time, especially Katrina. The initial session, she would not even entertain that possibility. And as I said, she showed shock when her mother acknowledged that she was very concerned and that she did love her. So this time I noticed that they were much more receptive to each other.
Did you have, I think you had some questions yourself about the family?
I do. I still have the question of Katrina's attempted, I'm going to call it overdose, attempted suicide. I'm still wondering what role that's playing with keeping the mom feeling scared and Katrina still in control, so that when mom says, if mom should say no to something, how is Katrina using that to her advantage as sort of an ace in the hole? If you will recall, during this video, during the session, mom wanted to talk about that, and Katrina shut it down, and it never came up again. And I believe mom talked about it in the terms of her fear, and it got shut down. So I'm wondering what role, or how do you see that playing a part in their relationship or in the dynamics?
You know, I'll tell you how I'd like to think of it, sort of an operational hypothesis. I'd like to think of her gesture, as serious as it was, as her calling for her mother. And I'd like to think of her being unable to talk about it as it feeling too personal and too intimate. She'd have to be too vulnerable. She'd have to reveal too much of herself and her need to her mother. And she's afraid to do that. Okay, so the sword has two edges to it. And one says, if you don't treat me just right, I'm going to run away or die.
Okay.
And that's a threat, and that shuts mother up. On the other side, it's I really want you, I really need you, just don't know how to do it, and I'm scared to do it. But I want you to know that I need you.
Okay, no, real
okay.
Well. Huh?
Okay. And then you have the mother on the other side who's just not sure that she's really loved and needed by her daughter.
Okay. I have a follow-up to that. Given that hypothesis, my anticipation or my moving this further says that as they become closer and a little bit more open, then Katrina will take the opportunity to talk more about that, because that's a real issue for mom right now still. Mm-hmm. So would that be an accurate assumption that as the relationship develops, that this can be unfolded and clarified?
It speaks to the whole, I need a mother, I want a daughter.
Okay.
Right? And that's what it's about. The only thing that I would say to you is to keep as much of the session in the room.
Okay.
And not to direct it to what they're going to do when they get home.
Okay.
Okay. Because these two people are afraid to get close, and it's a mutual problem. It's not just Trina's problem. It's mother's problem, and it's Trina's problem. And they'll need you to be in there with them and to help create the experience. You know, it was touch your daughter.
Yes.
Okay? And because it's a mutual problem, because Trina is now a young woman, Okay, Trina has to have some control over it. So it is, where do you want your mother to touch you?
Okay.
How do you want your mother to spend time with you? Do you want to spend that time with her? Okay. Do you want her to get closer to you? Would you like to get closer to your daughter? Giving them the mutuality of the experience would need to be nurtured right then, because they are so scared that if you send them home to do it, they will not know how to do it.
Okay.
So you're going to have to be part of that experience with them, just like you were today.
I think I can survive.
I think you can survive,
Okay.
and I think you have enough of a heart to put in there with them, and I think that'll help them to get together.
Okay.
But it's going to have to be nurtured very carefully. Right? And Trina's going to test it out. I mean, really test it out.
So that would explain some of her running away now,
Right?
not
Yes,
going to
ma'am.
school. Okay.
Sure.
Challenge. Okay.
Anything else?
I thought you did a wonderful job with them, and it was quite moving to see Katrina actually become vulnerable enough to let her eyes well up.
Mm-hmm.
That was a very new experience for Katrina.
I could feel the softness in both of them.
Yeah, that was really
The
neat.
sadness was the wall that was between them. Well, I'd like to open this up for people who have observations or comments or questions.
It was obvious you were getting Katrina's trust. That was obvious. And I was wondering why the exploration of resentment towards Mom, especially with the shift in the roles, did not occur.
Why I didn't explore resentment?
Your past resentment towards Mother.
Because I was trying to create a mood. I was trying to get people, generate a feeling in the room. And so if I had gone into past resentments, it would have begun to build up the wall, I thought. Okay? So I wanted to create an environment, a feeling, an experience of people beginning to get in touch with, I want you, I love you, I wish we could be closer, but I'm afraid to be closer, that kind of thing. And that was the focus. So it wasn't just what we were going to talk about. It was very much what kind of experience do I want us all to participate in right now. And that's what it was. So I wanted to stay right on that focus.
I was wondering at what point in the interview you initially got the hunch that it was the relationship between mom and daughter in terms of showing and receiving, sharing and receiving love back and forth, and how you went about then developing that within yourself to prepare the stage to do that intervention.
I wish I had I wish I had it recorded so I could play back the tape and say at 1:53, on the counter. But what I can tell you is what was happening with me is that I was my daughter is 16, okay, and I was looking at them and I saw my wife, going after my daughter. My daughter said, don't kiss me, and then going back a little later, and then a little smile on her face when my wife would go back and kiss her anyway, right? And it was that picture of watching my daughter protecting herself, but then liking it when my wife wouldn't respect it, She would respect it, but she wouldn't respect it. She wouldn't swarm all over her, but she certainly would not allow my daughter to just, walk away. And there was this total conviction on my wife's part that this kid wants to be loved. That's what kept my faith up, and that's the picture that I had, and I was working within that frame all that time. And now when that happened, I cannot tell you.
Was there a time during the interview that you felt like if the younger siblings were out, that she wouldn't have to put up this tough role as much, because not only was she putting up for the mother, but for her younger siblings also? And if not, the next session, would you have it with just Mother and Katrina? Would that be better? Maybe she wouldn't feel like she had to keep up that role also.
I thought that that the younger sibling served for her as a diversion, somebody to hide behind. She could look at them, she could pay attention to them, she could laugh at them. And it provided her a little safety, a little safe ground. Given that I think we got to a fairly intimate moment towards the end there, I would certainly like to see Naomi try it with Mother and Katrina alone next time and see how well they handle it. I don't believe, that's my guess, that if the kids hadn't been there, she would have been able to say, "Oh, Mom," I think we just needed to tease it out, and I thought that was a fairly safe environment in which to tease it out.
This was extremely loving and touching, I think, for the family, but also for so many of us in the room. And I think it was the best teenage prevention program I've ever seen. Teenage pregnancy prevention program, thank you. A real serious, a very trite
I think
kind
that's a very good point.
It
I
really,
agree with you.
yeah. A very, I almost am afraid to raise this question because it seems so trite, but when you spoke about the father and the father's ability to touch the daughter, I saw both the daughter and the mother squirm a little. And we might want to find out what that's about at some point.
Yeah, I was conscious of it, and I didn't know, well, I thought, should I ask? Sure, I should ask. I need to get a feeling for how they react to this guy and what his role is there. And I got a reaction, and I think it needs to be explored more. But I think it would best be explored at a point where Trina can really talk to her mother. Where they can have, these can be women who really talk about intimacy and about sex and about closeness and about men and, so on. Then they may be able to have an honest conversation. And that's why I tend to very much agree with you about that this is a good teenage pregnancy prevention kind of thing, because I was just picturing this girl going to these men and getting the holding and the touching there, and not knowing that what she wanted was her mother's holding. Yeah.
Just kind of following up on the last comment, I think when you work with teenagers, particularly with this kind of scary mix of drugs, suicide, potential pregnancy, street behavior, it's real easy to get into a posture of control and power. And there's some support in some of our belief systems about executive functioning of parents and so forth. And I was really impressed that you didn't do that, and that it sort of the session occurred not so much in the context of power and authority, but much more in the context of love and intimacy. So I really appreciated that. The other thing I really appreciated was what I thought was the really crucial moment in this. One of the crucial moments, or a crucial defining moment in the session, was when you kept pushing the mother to touch the kid and for the kid to be uncomfortable. And I was just wondering, how did that all evolve in your own mind? Did you just sort of fall into it, and then it became clear why you were doing it? Did you want to do it ahead of time?
No, not ahead of time.
Did you just go with it as it started to come up?
I mean, the natural thing for me is to conduct an interview with having people talk it, put it all into symbols. And I was feeling frustrated. I was feeling like nothing's happening here. I mean, I'm not generating anything here. And it was then I just consciously said to myself, now, how do I move? I know where I want to go, but they can't really talk to each other. Nothing's happening. How do I move it? And I thought, well, then we have some action. We've got to do something. And because I tend to touch myself. I mean, culturally, that's part of me. And so I would think of touching. Right? And I would tend to touch my kid and tend to touch, anybody that's around me, I will tend to touch. So that was an easy step for me to take. And when I took the step mentally, then I pulled back because I thought, she's not going to want that. And I thought, well, why not? Let's do that. Let's really have this thing played out. Let's have the experience. And it was just wonderful to see her just go like this, but there was a little thing in her face that didn't mind it. At least I felt that.
Thanks. There's just one other question. Another real powerful reference, I thought, towards the end of the session was the mom talking about her relationship with her own mother and her nostalgia for what she had missed with her own mother. And I thought you heard that, and you seemed to make a decision not to get into it at that point. What was the basis of your thinking regarding that?
Well, I wanted everything focused on a communication between mother and daughter. And if she could have talked more about what that was like for her, needing her mother's closest wanting and so on, if I thought it would have done that and would have been a way of bridging to her daughter, I would have encouraged it. My feeling was that she would have gone into history, and that would have taken her away from her daughter. I wanted an experience there. I wanted to bring them as close to each other as I possibly could. And anything that occurred to me, whether it was in terms of getting history or in terms of what we talked about or how we talked about it, anything that would draw us away from creating some mutuality, some intimacy between mother and daughter, I wasn't going to get into.
Thanks.
I was wondering, since Katrina had said with her stepfather, that she would like to be like him, basketball player and everything like that, that would it be good to maybe have co-therapists in there, a male and a female, so that the mother would have support, and also Katrina would learn how to, to stay and get along with females, but also have the male in there to maybe make her a little more comfortable and bring her out?
I don't know. I think it was a curious thing when they got into that. And again, I didn't want to get into it because I thought it would take away from the two of them. But I think it has to be gotten into. Why was she saying that? What did the father person represent in her life? And how did that triangle affect their relationship? All of that was going through my head. I could see moving next time into mother and daughter. I could see taking that wherever it leads you, and in the process finding out where does stepfather, where does father fit in, and any other male figure. And then if one wanted to get in a co-therapist or bring somebody else in, you could do it then. Right now, I'd really like to intensify the focus.
Thank you.
One more question. Well, there are only two people left there. Why don't we just...
Mr. Aponte,
Yes,
my
sir.
question is, I could see and understand and appreciate you're creating the context of nurturance between mother and daughter. But was in your mind, or could this be a bind as you're creating this nurturance? What about the issue of hierarchy and her being able to tell the daughter, when she's running loose in the neighborhood or whatever, would that be difficult to have both roles?
Absolutely. Because I thought if you don't have the intimacy, if you don't have the affection, if you don't have the trust, mutual trust, how are you going to put in the hierarchy? How are you going to put in the authority? How do you use power? Power outside of trust becomes something that can be abusive, that can be hurtful. Power within and hierarchy within a relationship of trust and affection is a good thing. They don't have that kind of trust between them. So I wanted to work on the trust, and out of that, one would say, now do you want a mother who'll tell you what to do? My hope would be that she'd say yes.
Okay. Will that be difficult, though, for her to see her as a mother ever?
No,
Okay.
because in my mind, it's clear this is a mother, this is not a friend. Okay. And it is a mother. This is not affection between two girls.
Right. Okay.
Okay, these aren't kids. It is, do you want a mother? Your mother wants a daughter.
Okay. Thank you.
The question I have, well, first an observation is I just thought it was terrific, and the respectfulness and keeping it in the room and building the mood, just it really moved me, and I thank you for that.
Thank you.
The question I had was, in your own mind, it seems you also are being very clear, and I guess it just comes with years of experience of kind of what to do before you do something else. It seemed to me that with not getting the conversation going between them, that you began to talk for the mother first and kind of give her a voice. and say, this seems to be what you want to be a mother to your daughter, and then you spoke for the daughter, and you want her to be your mother, that sort of thing, to kind of get the thing rolling. Am I right about that? And then Mom was able to come forward and speak, and she was fairly articulate at the end, it seemed to me. Very,
even though I'm saying here, I wasn't pushing for hierarchy. I was, but in a subtle sort of way. I was clear I was going to address the mother first. I was clear that I was going to go to the mother and say, this is your job.
Right.
Okay. I was clear I was going to treat her as the person who had the responsibility here and give her that kind of recognition and that kind of respect. Okay. I was trying to treat her differently from the way I treated Katrina. Okay. In that sense. And that's laying the groundwork for the hierarchy at the same time that the overt focus is on the intimacy and the affection.
Yeah. And you worked on roles first and feelings about those roles. And,
they were playing back and forth.
But
yes.
giving her a voice first. You made a decision to speak
Absolutely, very
to her.
consciously.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
I know that you'd all like to have an opportunity to express your appreciation not only to Harriet Ponte and Naomi Garrett, but to the family as well. Let's take a moment to do that.